Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS current affair analysis for 17th of May 2021. In this video, we'll be looking at this couple of issues. The first article for the day is taken from the Indian Express and it is titled Walk the Green Talk. So basically, recently in the Climate Ambition Summit, our Prime Minister has reiterated our stance that we are here for moving towards sustainable development. As a part of our nationally determined contributions that we have announced in the Paris summit, India wants to stick to that. There are broadly two themes. One is moving towards sustainable energy, and the other one is reducing the carbon emissions. In order to reduce the carbon emissions, our strategy is to improve the carbon stocks. So basically, when we are talking about carbon stocks, we are talking about forests. So these are the broad themes. When we are talking about sustainable energy, we have to understand that thermal energy is the major form of power generation. In India, at present, 72% of the total power is generated from coal. So there is a definite need to move towards renewable energy. So we have set a target of 175 gigawatts by 2020, and recently the target has been increased to 450 gigawatts by 2025 in 2018. So Climate Ambition Summit, in that meeting our Prime Minister has announced this new target in 2018. So what are the problems in achieving this target? Let us start with the most obvious one, that is solar. When we are talking about renewable energy, the first problem is regulatory mechanisms which are involved in this solar. So when we're talking about solar, the major problem is the cost have come down, but the purchase obligations which the states signed long back ago were not honored by the states. Secondly, states like Andhra Pradesh have actually renegotiated the purchase obligations. So way back in 2015 and 16, when the power purchase obligations was signed by a lot of companies, the unit power cost was somewhere around 6 to 7 rupees. Now it fell to almost 3 to 4 rupees. It is actually even less when we are taking into consideration 2 to 3 rupees is the cost of solar power in a lot of areas. So no state wants to spend so much of amount of money for adopting solar. So the second problem is rooftop. Rooftop solars are those solars which are installed upon individual complexes. They're supposed to be connected to the grid, but the options given to the consumers is either net metering or gross metering. What this means is, net metering means whatever energy is created by that solar panel, a part of that will be utilized by their own complex. So whatever is the excess energy that is left out, that is given out as a power source, and it is connected to, it was supposed to be connected to the grid, but that didn't really happen. When we're talking about gross, the entire energy will be taken up by the grid and they will get certain amount of money in return. So this scheme also did not take off because of the pricing involved. Either net metering or gross metering is too expensive for the owner to set up. So for example, 2 to 3 lakhs is the cost for setting up a solar panel. It requires regular maintenance and it's not actually catering to the demand in the peak time. So there should be a dynamic pricing. This is one policy measure which can improve the take up of this rooftop solar. So this is about solar energy. Other renewable energy sources like wind and hybrid solar and wind, all these are in the nascent stages. So solar is the game changer when we're talking about renewable energy along with hydropower. Why are we talking about renewable energy? Say for example, one major sector that will drive the growth of renewable energy sector is transportation. Railways is supposed to completely make a transition towards clean energy by 2024. So this clean energy is completely driven by electricity. So electric trains are the way forward for transportation sector. Similarly, we are talking about electric buses. We are talking about electric vehicles in the form of FAME scheme by the Ministry of Heavy Industries. So the entire sector is going to change, and for all this, renewable energy is going to be the game changer. But unless and until we deal with the dichotomy, what is the dichotomy? On one hand, we have coal, which is supposed to be phased out, yet we are still in the phase of reforming our coal sector so that we reduce our imports. We have a very short window of time wherein we have to use our coal resources, otherwise, they will be left as such as untapped potential, because greenhouse gases are increasing, and world over there is a consensus that we have to move towards renewable energy. Even India agrees to this, but in the given short window, we cannot completely make a transition towards renewable energy without actually using or leveraging the available coal resources in our country. On one hand, when we're talking about thermal, even if we hit the target that our Prime Minister has laid down in the 2018 summit, we'll still have around 62% of energy coming from thermal sources by 2030. We have to decrease this. Now, how is that possible? Only through clean coal technology, and at the same time making a transition towards a cleaner sources of fuel. So all the policy measures that are needed for encouraging the renewable energy sector should be streamlined. They are there but in silos. So what this will actually do is it will make life very difficult for those who want to adopt renewable energy. That is the gist of this article. Restructuring the tribunal system. This is about the structure of our tribunals and the deficiencies that we are witnessing in the delivery of results with the respect to the expectations set from the tribunals. So we are talking about a recent ordinance. What is that ordinance? This ordinance is the Tribunal Reforms Ordinance. Technically, it is called the Tribunal Reforms Rationalization and Conditions of Service Ordinance 2021. What did the government do? The center abolished several appellate tribunals and authorities and transferred their jurisdiction to their existing judicial bodies. What does this mean? The government has actually tried to amend the Finance Act of 2017. So, through the said ordinance, the government seeks to dissolve certain appellate bodies and tribunals. What are they? One, we have airport tribunals. Secondly, we have the appellate board under the Trademark Act of 1999. Then under IT Act, we have Authority of Advanced Ruling. And finally, we have the Film Certification Appellate Authority under the Cinematographer Act of 1952. So, the ordinance sought to repeal all these bodies. Now, where will we go for appeal? It depends on various individual tribunals. For example, airport tribunal. So, the central government, for disputes arising from the disposal of properties left on airport premises by unauthorized occupants, the appeal should be done to central government. When it comes to appeals against orders of an eviction order, that is to move out of the airport land or such kind of orders, then we have to go to the High Court. We have to wait for High Court order. Similarly, when we are talking about this appellate board under the Trademark Act of 1999, the jurisdiction was given to High Court. So the underlying point is this: tribunals which were created for a specific purpose, that is to deliver speedy, inexpensive and decentralized decisions of judiciary, are now being subverted. The appeal system is being subverted. We already have a lot of pending cases in this High Courts and Supreme Court. So why are we actually moving away from that structure, and why are we in some cases taking away the power of tribunals? So in order to go back to the original understanding of tribunals, we have to discuss certain points. We have to know that tribunals are not originally a part of the constitution of our country. So they were introduced in 1985. Tribunals were constituted with an objective to deliver speedy justice. We know that pending cases in our high courts and Supreme Court is one of the biggest problem that is stopping us from having justice. That is the biggest complaint with Indian judiciary. Therefore, in 1985, depending on the committee recommendations, that is the Swaran Singh committee recommendations, we have introduced the provisions in according with the recommendations. So, in the constitution, we have a part dedicated to tribunals, the 14th part, 14A, which speaks about two kinds of tribunals. Article 323A speaks about administrative tribunals, central administrative tribunals and state level. And then we have Article 323B, which is meant for specific purposes. Now, just because these special purpose tribunals are not functioning effectively, and just because their appeal structures are yielding little results, it does not mean that you overburden the already burdened High Courts and Supreme Court. And also, this is against the principle of tribunals. So, probably the answer lies in creating a system of tribunals which actually function by restructuring them rather than completely removing them and bypassing the objective with which they are created. That is the central premise of this article. And this is not just the opinion of a particular writer, we are referring to certain Supreme Court cases as well. For example, Supreme Court in a specific case called the Roger Matthew vs South Indian Bank 2019. This case can be used in your answers to cite certain legitimate opinions, because it is given by, obviously, Supreme Court decision is the final one. So in this case, what Supreme Court said was there is a need for judicial impact assessment. In our GS3 syllabus with respect to environment, we have heard about environmental impact assessment. That is to have a particular framework to understand the impact of a decision taken. Similarly, we are talking about a judicial impact assessment. In this, a framework is created to understand what will be the effect of a decision if, say, tribunals are removed. What will happen? That was not carried out before removing these tribunals and the appellate boards. Also, in the second instance, we have another case called the Madras Bar Association versus Union of India case. In this case, Supreme Court said that there needs to be a search cum selection committee. So what does this search cum selection committee do? It recommends the names of the chairpersons and the members for the appointment by central government in the tribunal. Now, this recommendation was definitely taken up in this ordinance. Indeed, the government has created a committee for this purpose. But one more term, which is very crucial for independence of this members, was not taken into consideration. That is, security of tenure. Supreme Court recommended that there should be a security of tenure for at least 5 years. Only then the tribunals can take impartial decisions, because they might be under a constant threat of job removed or transfer from that tribunal. So employment security is completely not there in the tribunals. If that is the scene, how effectively can they deliver without a fear or a threat is a question. That is the reason security of tenure is important. But that is completely sidelined and ignored in this. The 5-year term is not taken into consideration for this purpose. So that is another drawback. Further, Supreme Court in a case called the L. Chandrakumar vs Union of India case, way back in 1997 itself, it recommended the creation of National Tribunal Commission. This National Tribunal Commission is an independent umbrella body. But if this were to remain impartial or independent, it should have a constitutional status. This constitutional body will be responsible in delivering justice. This will actually look after all the appointments so that there is no conflict of interest. Therefore, the need to have a National Tribunal Commission through a constitutional amendment is probably the only way forward to deliver effective justice as per the original design through Article 323B. Finance Ministry has actually given the responsibility to come up with the responsibilities for a transition plan when they're moving away from this existing framework towards NTC. There is no progress on that front till now. But you have to understand certain advantages of this NTC as well, that is the National Tribunal Commission. Apart from the fact that it can ensure independent recruitment, there are also other advantages, like it can take up certain duties relating to administration and oversight. That will give efficiency to the entire tribunal system. Second thing is, it can come up with a research based standards which are set, and according to those standards the efficiency of tribunals and their own administrative processes can be improved. Therefore, considering all these advantages that National Tribunal Commission has, the way to reform the tribunal system is to look at solutions from a systemic point of view rather than completely moving away from them. So that is the gist of this article.